Do we want to talk about build cycle now or after? Or we could do it in a different session. Kind of meta process. We don't have to do it today, but just flagging it. We don't really have a structure right now, which is okay, but we talked about doing like a tight 2-week cycle, and then I was just looking back at notes and I'm like, how do we make that happen? I don't know.
Yeah, my instinct there's like that might get easier if we know the things that we would want to get done in the next 2 weeks, and then like separate out what's past that, and then just see the shape emerge. But yeah, I think doing it sort of towards the end of this call makes sense.
Yeah, okay. And then there's probably like some meta discussion in that gives us like the framework of the kind of thing that we want to do, if it makes sense. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we said Excalidraw for, I don't know why. We had a reason. Easier to sketch, just I think.
Drafty. Yeah.
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 Cool.
We have no, we don't have one for.
Yeah, I don't think we've done Prompty and Excalidraw yet. Have we?
I don't think so.
Excalidraw.
You haven't used it?
Mm.
Well, you'll find out. And anybody want to make one?
Yes, trying to. There we go. Got it. That's not it.
Yeah, it's a good fallback for, I mean, it's good for sketchier wireframey thinking stuff. And then Figma and FigJam are like walling off things more and more with their paid stuff. So yeah, I mean, you can't do polish in here, but the thinking work has been decent.
Oh, cool.
The necessary get the blobs out of your system.
Every time it's so funny, and everyone just gets quiet and they're just like, go, 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 go.
Yeah, because you guys are. I'm just following your guys' lead.
Sometimes when we were like super young in our group coming together, like the first time we did this with, was it FigJam? We like lost our minds and we were going berserk, and Dave didn't know what was going on and he was like really upset by it. It was really funny though. It's just like, what is happening? Why is like it? Because like John and I can communicate easily through Canvas interfaces, and he doesn't know what's going on, and CJ's just like, yes.
In my practice, Canvas interfaces were for a different purpose.
Sacred.
And I'm just like, we're making an interface right now. We're doing the opposite of this. We're creating chaos. But now we have a chaos mode, so that's fine.
Yeah, we do have chaos mode. Oh, I'm going to drop some games this canvas. I'm going to drop something.
All right. So we're basically going to boot this up again. Yeah, we did not having a restful weekend is not good. Brain is sludge.
We were too social.
Yeah. So basically, we're trying to figure out the like bounds. We figured out the general structure, like from the code side of things, and then started talking about the interface side of things for doing like a sort of group like instance of Prompty. This is kind of where we left off. And we need to start sketching the actual interfaces both on both ends and sort of matching them up. So what is the experience generally, and what kind of decisions are we making in there, feature wise and all this stuff. So I don't know where we start. I guess right now we have like a fully public surface, a listing, and then individual prompt pages. Like that effectively is an instance of Prompty. And then if we have a layer above that, maybe, I don't know, we can start, like how do you get to the list of Prompties? When you have a Prompty, like what kinds of things do you need to make one, like an addition screen or something like this? I don't know. So we can start sort of architecting that way. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Like, do you want to just like pick a path and like just step through it, like pick a user path and just like jot down whether it's create one good. Or something?
Yeah, let's do that then. I always get, how do you do this? Like, actually, that's because I tend to just make a mess.
A really nice exercise. We didn't do it enough, but one really nice exercise is just having someone act like the user and then just literally intuitively what they'd expect they'd want to do next, right? It's like,
okay.
So it's like, I'm here, what do I want to do? Well, I mean, okay, log in, we ignore that. But then it's like, okay, it's like make a prompt. Then that's like, okay, how do you do that? What's the requirements to make the prompt, basically? So there's probably a make a prompt path. There's a probably the things you highlighted. Let's make a public prompt because I think we know that one the best, maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
And then walk through it again as a group, and then walk through it again as private or something like that.
Yep. That's good. I like this, the role-playing method.
Yeah. No, it's nice. Yeah.
I think this is similar to what we got into with the UX mapping. Yeah, that we lost our minds with. Yep.
We're doing that again.
We found it super useful to do what you're talking about, Jordan, like walking through the app as if you were the user and then just mapping out everything from like back-end tech all the way up to marketing, because there's lots of different things depending on the project. Like this one less so for marketing, but like for Exquisite Land, we'll have a version of this because there's just so many different things happening.
Yeah, I don't know if it works all the time because of the nature of the project, but this one does feel like it can be, there's enough steps so we can use it as like a kind of a like we can break it apart into steps easily enough. Obviously there's lots of tools that you cannot do this exactly with.
No, I mean, we've got pretty linear processes, and like the surfaces, you can't do all that much. Maybe on the like build a prompt, like we're starting to build an editor there. So we're going to get into, lots of jobs to be done kinds of things. So, all right, cool. Yeah, go ahead.
You want to jump into it?
Yeah.
So we'll do just a user path of creating the Prompty because we kind of mostly already know that, right? Just kind of get it out.
Yeah, and so I assume that like prompty.xyz is, and so are we creating a Prompty instance, or are we creating like is that what we're talking about?
Oh yeah.
That makes sense to basically to get to this state, but through the eyes of somebody who doesn't have a Prompty instance yet.
Okay.
That's a good question. This is from the path of someone who doesn't have an instance yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So presumably they hit a Prompty instance, or they hit Prompty.xyz somehow, like because I imagine that like in the case of like this is just, we're hosting these things for now. There's like a bug in the bottom of the page that's like, this is a Prompty, and then what's a Prompty, and then you go to that question is answered by going to Prompty.xyz for now, and then they're queued up to want one of these things. So I see a button, so probably connect wallet. I don't know if we have
Prompty.xyz connect wallet, right?
Yeah. This may have marketing material on it. It may have like but none of that matters right now.
Yeah, let's get it out of our heads though. So I mean, I'm just going to take notes of everything everyone's kind of just throwing out there at these steps, and we can refine it later. A good place for marketing stuff. Also, I was going to say, we can go deeper, or we can tag the connect wallet and map out those edge cases later, because I don't know how many of those are relevant to the core app workflow right now. I'll ask you guys that.
Yeah, let's assume that stuff is pocketed for now.
Good.
Yeah, like there might be some alternate way of going about doing this. We may, you know, as we go, I mean, for now it's Rainbow Kit and what we've got. So if later, if we juice that up into something where the wallet is obscured or whatever, that'll change. So
great.
Yeah, on this page or this view, I don't know what these things are, views probably, surface. Yeah, why Prompty is cool. Some marketing kind of descriptive explanatory stuff. How to get a Prompty should be explained by the button. The button. Yeah, you can call that,
what was
create a Prompty.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. So you connect to the wallet, and the next thing you do is hit create Prompty.
I think
that's a
the
good
UI will
point.
change to like being activated. Like perhaps the create a Prompty is grayed out, or that's
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
We'll figure all the layout stuff on that. But generally, like, yeah, go ahead.
Connected wallet, and it now enables the create prompt button.
Yeah, and how we show that, whether or not it's grayed or not, we can figure out the pattern on that. But and then probably other instances of like we could do a listing here of public prompties.
Yep. Are you thinking just like a mini feed or a link out? We don't have to decide now. I just wondered if you had a.
I mean, what's popping up is like just sort of the simplest first idea to reach for is just like a list of prompted. They're like just cards or something like this, and then they probably have some logo, some description, the title, you know, and like maybe members or something like this. Yeah, I think so my instinct here is to just come back to all this stuff after we filled in the guts. Like, because the dashboard and these kinds of landing pages make a lot more sense once we have the internals worked out. So, but this is a sketch of kind of what it feels like.
Cool.
So now we have a few paths, but we're going to go down the create a Prompty path. So assuming you're connected, I want my own Prompty instance. I hit create a Prompty and then create a Prompty screen. This is, all right, metadata on the Prompties instance. We had some notes on this.
Yeah, I think the only two we had was group name and whether it's public or unlisted, list of addresses.
Yep. So
we want like description and those kind of things too, because that would probably be a good thing. Like it would be. It could go either way. I at first I was like, we have to do that up front, and then I realized, oh, we don't actually have to do that up front. So it's kind of just like up to us what we want to do.
So that's in the contract, or like, I mean, it just costs basically.
Basically, what it would mean is like we have one contract which has like all the group names, IDs, visibility, like whatever metadata we initially associate, and then we just create another contract if we want to add description and images later. That like basically says this group ID also, you know, has these things too. And so you just kind of keep adding on with new contracts if you want other information.
I think that pattern makes most sense from the user perspective, like the least amount of friction to get the thing made, and then you can tidy it up when it's more valuable.
I like that. Get them to commit the emotional part first and have the administrative part afterwards.
Yep. Well said.
We're not
Admin
manipulating
later.
It's for their own good.
Let us help you.
Yeah.
Help us help you.
Help us help you be a little more human, you nerd.
You nerd.
You nerd. What about the metadata for the social media like thumbnail thing that shows up where it's like an overview of the prompt? I don't know. It doesn't come in here, but I don't think.
Yeah, let's So the partition that CJ was just describing, where we put admin later, we are going to come back to the admin section and we can fill in any of these kinds of things there.
Kind of shocked John is faster at drawing than I am typing and text editing. I'm getting owned.
How it goes. I mean, you can toss this stuff on the Excalidraw too, because
totally. I like taking notes right below too. So if you want to add text in there,
yeah, no, I'll also drop these in.
Yeah, I am terrible at
you already
this.
have it.
I start designing the thing and then I get lost in a tunnel, and it's not.
You've captured my notes already.
So, okay.
Okay, so a question on group name.
Yeah.
Do we have any, is this a weird, like, do we worry about multiple names? We tell you that name's been taken. How does, I guess, I assume this is solved in a way I haven't discovered yet, but do you?
We can enforce it in the contract if we feel like. We could also not enforce it in the contract if we don't care.
I don't know how much I was gonna say, if you're sharing the URL, who cares you have the same name? If that's not the identifier. If you're not searching
there's still an ID. Yeah. So collisions shouldn't happen really.
Would you in the UI search by a title? Is that a thing? Or would you need a URL regardless? I guess it depends on how you scoped it, right?
You could search by title for sure. I think. Yeah, I'm trying to think just from like user like east kind of stuff. I don't know if this is where like subdomains and like that kind of stuff goes in, or I think that's also why the other day I was talking about the URLs is like, do we use IDs or do we use names? Because it's like prompty.xyz/buzzard/something versus prompty.xyz/0, which is representing the ID of buzzard. And then like, if you can keep unique stuff, like it might help. Then there's other constraints of like, it needs to be URL encoded or like whatever nonsense. But yeah, I think it can go either way. It's just like, how do you want to present that? Or how do we want to present that? I think it's like, I don't know personally, like I like not having IDs, but IDs also make things like slightly easier. It's just kind of ugly. It's like almost how much do we want the user to like feel connected to that thing in a way? At least like that's how I think about it.
That's the question I have too, is how much do we want the user to center on this versus something else? What's better for them, right? I don't know. I don't have a feeling on this one yet.
So I'm curious on that. Yeah. So like, how much is it their area? So the upside to doing pretty URLs and like turf effectively is these things are public. So it's a site and you are sharing the site, and then the URL becomes the address. It's the address is associated with the space, and like, so it's a bit of branding, I guess. Yeah. And so when you're sharing them, you are more likely to share a pretty one. Because and then that becomes a value add that you can sell potentially. How much that is worth, and how much is that worth the effort of doing that well? I don't know. But if these things are, this is a concept that they're kind of like publications potentially, like a front end on your like so whether or not we need to do that pattern now, or we can see if it emerges and people like it. This is how.
I was actually gonna say this is something that we can possibly like punt on technically too, similar to like
cool
the way that like I don't know, we talked about the admin panel kind of thing. Like we could probably do a similar thing for like group names, which is like basically like a manage your domain kind of, or whatever, manage your whatever, and like that can be figured later. So we can probably just do IDs for now and like keep it simple.
Perfect.
Great then. So when the user comes to their the create name field, we don't really have to worry about like we don't have to worry about anything like autofill or warning them then. We were saying.
Yeah, sounds like we can take anything as long as it's a string.
Right on. Cool. All right, is it now? Oh, hold on, you have it here.
Curious if this is also the step where we'd want to collect addresses, or does that happen more ad hoc later? Both may be an answer as well.
Yeah. Let's see.
Maybe it can be left empty, like it's an optional field, but it's something you
Mhm.
can do. I'm not sure. Or it's a thing where you have like a plus button, you can like add things. I'm not sure. I can see it going both ways too.
I say we plop it in here for now and see if it, you know, and then we'll get a chance to iterate on the flow of this thing as we go. Yeah, like by default, your address is in it.
Mhm.
And then we can do plus minus like a list field or whatever, and it adds and deletes objects in there. Yeah, an invitation process and all this other stuff probably needs to grow out of this, but for now,
Yeah.
manual addition. And it's possible, is it possible in here like easily to do ENS names?
I think so.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a problem.
So yeah, the specific,
Maybe if it's a lot of addresses at once, it becomes a problem. But I assume like most of these groups are not hundreds of people.
Right. We could always have a CSV upload at some point.
Like,
yeah,
well, I mean, there's also the
love it.
like possibility of like hijacking ENS and being like, we have our relational.eth thing, and then there's a bunch of fields in there, which is just like a CSV of like all the addresses of who's a member of this thing, and then
that's
pulling from
interesting.
that, like just like as a way of like basically encapsulating like some level of like access control list,
Mhm.
like by utilizing existing standards in like a different way.
That's cool.
I think like some of that like could make sense.
Yeah, there's we get to profiles and lists, managing lists and all this kind of stuff, which is up a layer too. So
that stuff is like huge, because like you can also do
Yeah.
subdomains on ENS, and it's like I know how things at
Mhm.
Qualcomm worked, whereas like everyone has like their org and like blah blah blah, like but you have like the huge Qualcomm org, and then you have like smaller orgs, and like
yeah.
now that you can do that, like that whole thing, it's like the whole email list pattern basically.
No, that's cool. Yeah.
That's with Ethernet, or sorry, Ethereum.
Yeah, ENS.
Okay,
the
I gotta
Ethereum
look at that later.
naming
Write that
service.
down. Okay.
Yeah, it basically has like, you could add arbitrary like JSON fields to ENS. So as long as you know how to like pull that field from anything, like you can just like use it as a namespace. It's just like a great namespace basically.
That's crazy.
It's totally going to get polluted at some point, but for now it's fine. Like no one's using it other than for cjpice.eth means address 0x314
Yeah.
blah blah blah.
Well, the infrastructure is there if we can piggyback on it, and like we get some stuff for free in the meantime until we can figure out what it actually wants to be, and then
Right.
somebody rolls their own or we roll our own,
Right.
plug into it. Cool.
I'm assuming we're gonna have a transaction signed right after this point. I guess the question is like, is there gonna just be one of these in the mirror authentication style, or are we gonna have like a couple with each settings update? And I don't think this is relevant to answer now. I guess I just want to account for like at least one of these in here. But
Can I ask a little bit about that?
sure. Yeah.
So if I do a group name, okay, no, that is after the addresses. Okay, so the transaction has to get all that metadata before it puts it all through, right? You wouldn't do this piecemeal.
I think so, but it feels like there'll still need to be a way to update any of this data. So like then
And that would
my
require the
question-
same transaction, right?
Yes and no. Like the default, my naive approach is yes, but I think there's also ways of like sort of authorizing your session sort of so that you can make these updates like really
Oh.
easily. But I think that might be like complexity. I don't know, CJ, if you're imagining a flow here.
I would say, I mean, I think there's like two major options, at least as far as, well, there's a lot of options actually. But one is just like keeping things very simple, and it's like user pays gas. And like does that whole thing. We could also go gasless. And then the other option is like kind of what you're describing with Mirror. There's also like a protocol that's emerging, which is login with Ethereum, like similar to like sign in with Ethereum, which it's the website for this is login.xyz. I believe. Yeah.
Yep.
So that this could be like a good way of trying to do it as well. I think it's a pattern that like is starting to emerge, but I haven't seen a ton of places use it yet. But it might be a good option here.
Clarity so uses it.
Is it
That's
does
the
it
first
work
place
well?
and it does, yeah. I mean, it works seamlessly enough that I didn't think about it until I'm like, oh, that worked really well. So yes.
Cool.
That's really good then.
Yeah, I'd be very curious like how that integrates with like all the rest of the infrastructure, especially like here. But I have no idea if they're like using it as like really a method of like accessing Web 2 databases, or if they're using it as a method to interact with like a contract properly. I think like that's the question. My guess is it's more on the Web 2 database side, but I think it's probably worth exploring.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, this is the bucket of Connect Wallet sign in. Yeah, this whole thing, right? So like we can probably do a jam on that.
Yeah, I'm trying to identify future workflows. This is a big boy.
Yeah.
And fortunately, this is one of those things that like the initial implementation, like we can kind of just do the worst thing and feel it out and like re-implement it. Like I don't think it should be that difficult. Like for the most part, like we've experimented with these methods and like we can copy and paste code and like get things to work.
Cool.
Like it might just be like a little bit of like hacking and annoying and like whatever, because like most of these things are just like really annoying on the technical side, but it's all doable.
It's the right time to be hacking anyway. This is the right phase.
Right.
Okay, so some confirmation, and then probably ditch the Connect wallet on all these pages. I mean, we're assuming that they can't see it unless they are. Right. OCD. Okay, so so where are you dropped at this point? I guess is, so does it drop you in a blank screen once you've created your Prompty? Welcome to your new Prompty to get started, yada, yada, yada. We don't really need to overdo it on that, but like here is basically, I guess it's your top level Prompty screen. There's probably a link to settings on here. That's the only subsection we have so far.
Yeah, I'm kind of imagining maybe the default index view, if there are no prompts, then there's a little bit more like content that's basically saying and guiding you to create a prompt. But otherwise it just starts filling in with prompts. Yeah, so the few things here, we can do an example prompt for that case where like people like it, we can use the system to onboard people through a prompt. That may be a little too fancy here, but like we can think about that. Yeah. Some amount of priming. Yeah.
This is a part I'm really looking forward to. You guys, like, I'm bad at this kind of thing, so I'm really like, I'm hoping you guys can help me learn how to do this kind of stuff better. I'm really interested.
Onboarding stuff.
Yeah, I'm not good at this at all. This is a weak spot for me, so I'm excited to work on this with you guys.
Cool. Yeah, I've done a fair bit of it, so to varying degrees of success. Yeah, mostly it's just doing a lot of role play, like what don't I know as a novice, right? And then, you know, how can I build up that knowledge? So, and like we have a few dynamics here that we don't fully understand yet. And I think the best way to probably build this stuff out over time is just to walk people through the process as we give these things out or something, right? Like, and then see where they hit frictions. I'm pretty sure that like this is like a heavy friction point on getting getting your instance started and then getting people using it, right?
Yeah.
So like we want to get them in the flow of having felt the Prompty like experience as best as possible. So this is, yeah, it's a bit of like you know, priming and then getting them to participate with it. Because otherwise we have an empty screen, you create a thing, you don't know how to create, you know, we're probably
You're
going
just
to have to
floundering.
walk people. Yeah. So this is going to be hand holding. I doubt we're going to get like a decent idea on how to do this for a little bit, but yeah.
I do think there's an opportunity to introduce most people to it through the response side of things. Because I think,
Yeah.
I mean, clearly that's like from a creator standpoint, you make one and you want to invite a lot of people to it. So that seems like the easiest way to kind of start the conversation with the user of how to interact. I think going from like putting out, I guess my point being, I think we should put a lot more effort into that side of things than the like a blank slate showing up to Prompty and having no prompties to respond to and no prompties created, because I think that's a lot less likely.
So flow them into creating a prompt, like,
well, I guess
Responding
like
to a prompt.
responding to a prompt.
They're probably going to see like, how are people going to see Prompty? Like, what's their first experience going to be? It's probably going to be responding to a prompt that was already created, is what Tony's saying.
Then let's
then
definitely do that workflow next then. Yeah.
Yeah. Because then you grok the
he's
mental
totally right.
model.
He's totally right. That's going to be,
You've got
that's
the
going to be
model.
the,
Yeah, if you're using it, like most people will start piecing it together. And if you've used it once to respond, making one will probably be a lot easier because you know what the experience of responding is.
Yep.
Good point. Yeah.
Totally.
Okay, so create a prompt is lower priority than respond to a prompt, even if you are the creator of the Prompty. So
That's
we need this
good
workflow for the prototype, but I
Yeah.
think John nailed it for the actual like that should be the thrust, right? Like I think this work, like we should button this up, this the create from scratch, because I think he's right about that. We should probably put more wood behind those arrows when it comes to the one you just catch a link from, right?
Yeah. So
because that's distribution too, or marketing almost, how people are like, and if we can have an engaging experience or a positive experience, whatever word you want to insert in there, that people want to come back because it was fun to respond, then that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to hop over
going.
to like end user response flow.
Well, do we hold on? I haven't looked at the thing. Are we finished with you created the prompt? Do we want to?
Yeah, we can still close this one out.
We're pretty close. Should we just finish the?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think let's get settings filled in, and then like this is the concern of the or are you saying like all the way through to creating a prompt?
Well, we have the create prompt button, right?
Yeah, I think
we should do the field and you submit it before
the Prompty instance rounded out here.
Yeah.
Like, and then we can start going into the details that a Prompty instance like instantiate. Okay, cool. That's good. Yeah, so the settings are, this stuff. Yep.
Yeah, it's going back to the kind of the different hierarchy in this space. Like the settings are to this instance. It's not like a app settings. Yeah, that's good.
Yep, and here like they're like, can you remove yourself, and then what happens there, and like all these kinds of things. We can go into some specifics on this. The visibility, public, unlisted.
Like how changing those things affects it, and like if it warns you about anything, or
we got edge cases defined here.
Yeah. So I don't know that we need to dig down into those right now. We can stay at the top level, and then like I don't think structurally it'll change too much. And then any sort of like domaining or like logo or any of these kinds of things will go on this page for now. This will just be a sort of dump for everything, and then we'll clean it up as we go and see if we need to surface anything, this kind of stuff. So But yeah, subdomain stuff is going to be later. Logo or any of those things are icing. We can figure that out in the process.
And we don't do logo in the initial. Oh no, sorry, this is a different setting. Sorry. Keep
No.
going.
Yeah, these are good. These are just replicated things. And then maybe, I don't know, like we don't have delete or anything yet. So, but like kill the instance would go here when we have it. Yep. I think that's it. And unless we're missing anything management wise, like people management, visibility management, name of the thing. Anything else?
It's feeling pretty covered.
Cool. All right. So that, yeah, then we're into the guts of the thing, which is where we are now effectively.
Yeah.
So, and we have most all of that working. So then we're at the place where like priming, I guess, any sort of specifics.
But now we're switching to someone received a link and clicked it.
Yeah, so we can do that flow. Yeah, like figuring out the cases there, the like, you know, what they know cases. Basically, we can just go from like complete novice, never having seen, I mean, that's the majority case in the world. So,
Right.
yeah, we'll do our first sketch on that. So, part of this is like sort of there's a game potentially to design. Don't know when that comes up, like for shopping this thing around, like figuring out the best onboarding approach for, you know, like say we've got a community manager, they're running this thing. How do they get it in? How do they get their team using it? Right. It may be that we need to design that experiment like separately, you know, once we've got this stuff working.
Yeah, let's keep a list of, I love that. I want to keep a list of all these user types because I heard that said, but I didn't really formalize, so you said that right now. Like a community manager who's using it. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. And so it's like or like a, you know, a group text or like a Discord, you know, like all of these things can show up. Like in the case of the ones that I have are like something like that, a community manager that wants to like, then people who want to just sort of play the thing, like there's a whole thing about like Q&A games and stuff. People love these things. They pop up all the time. Like Tumblr had one, rep.ly is one of these things. It's just like, you know, ask me questions and I'll respond. So people like to play this thing. It's a conversational game. So this is the playing Prompty model. So like there is one model, like use case here that I can see that's like the Twitter thing, like where you drop a link to a Prompty on Twitter and then you have an existing audience, and then that existing audience like is drawn into the Prompty instance and the Prompty ID, like the specific prompt. Yeah. So what do they see? How do they understand how to play? You know, this kind of thing. We can go from that standpoint if that helps. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's both. We have some like assumptions about obviously where this thing is super useful, but this also kind of feels like a space where probably some of these users are going to start showing us stuff that we weren't thinking about. So kind of this is that space, right? Where it's like we have some rules that can get them going, but they might even have some own like stuff they kind of build on top of here, right?
Yeah,
socially, not technology, but like
yeah. And so like getting these things into experiments so we can see what the best case scenario is, getting it to community managers or people who are already good with engaging, like participation.
That sounds like a good target or user to target then. Yeah.
So what do they need minimally so that we can get this thing tested is where I'm the constraint, I guess. So this can work a couple different ways. We can just assume that the prompt has been written and is viable, right? Like is one, there's a whole slew of things on how to write good prompts and setting people up for this or whatever, but we will get there.
But that feels more like it would be a subflow of basically the create prompt stream. So
and
here
we're saying that like having gone through one instance of a Prompty, like will give you better tooling for how to make your own. So yeah. Watch some, try some. Yeah, so all right. My brain jumps in 30,000 directions.
So we already
In the
kind of
case
have
of
this
the-
screen. So I'm wondering if we just want to look at that and see if there's anything different that we would want to do on it.
I think what it would use Prompty for is a blank.
Well, I was also thinking an unexpired one that doesn't.
Yeah,
So you can't.
this one.
Yeah.
So this is the screen effectively. So the most work or the place I landed on it there are this many responses and then respond to reveal. This is kind of what we're trying to get across in this case. And like the hint that like you can respond, but you need to connect your wallet and all this other stuff. So this is like a version of a public one, I guess. In the case that like you are part of a semi-private one, you're already logged in. Same case, but there's a little bit difference on the icing. So do we want to work the like sort of semi-private case where we're handing this thing off to like a community manager or a community, and then like that's the playground? The public case we can figure out later.
It feels like
so.
Go for it, John.
Yeah, just like we kind of already have the public one in some sense. That's what we have already. So I think focusing on the semi-public one, just drawing those boundaries makes sense.
Okay.
Jordan, what were you thinking?
I honestly, I was gonna say, like, I mean, I'm just kind of listening to you guys, but it sounds like there's a lot of bang for the buck and kind of like community managers like using this and getting feedback from them. Like, so if that's the tack you want to take to kind of roll this out, I love focusing on as a user type because it seems like it'll inform a lot of the other user types downstream too. Like,
I think it gets us in touch with like the people who actually need this thing, like
and it's a
public
superset.
cases. They'll be able to give us feedback. Yeah,
right.
I guess like something that I'm kind of feeling into with that is like, I almost wonder if we kind of just like try to axe the public case and focus it more towards this, just to kind of see and get targeted feedback, because otherwise, like, I'm just thinking a little bit from the technical side. Like, I think there's just room for more complexity where we just have to handle a bunch more cases in a lot of other places, whether it's public versus semi-private. But if we're just treating everything as like semi-private, I think maybe it'll be simpler, maybe it won't. I'm not sure. That's my intuition. But
I think in the design exercise, we definitely do that. I mean, effectively, just remove the unlisted thing at the top level, and then it's gone. So, and then we can assume that all of these things are move the public toggle. Everything is unlisted for right now, which means that we're making instances that unless you're, so in that case, there's still the public case where you send out the URL and you can see all the things that are in the instance. We're not hiding those, right? So like, unless we decide to do that with like, if you're on the list, we have a distinction here that we need to figure out. Like connect wallet as
filter
the
or sort of like
for seeing content. So this is the per Prompty instance public private thing.
This is where signing my things. Okay.
Yeah, we just need an assumption, I guess, there. Like the easiest assumption that we can make, and then we can like on
Yeah.
what is being shown.
Interesting. Okay.
So for now, I guess we just pick one. Do we want to assume that like wallet equals visibility? Or do we want to assume that like wallet equals participation?
That's a good frame.
Can I
Say
get
that
a
again?
little more clarity? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a case that like you can't see anything unless you connect your wallet, right?
And
Which,
you're on the list
which is no list of anything. All you see is like buzzer.prompty.xyz or the ID buzzer prompty.xyz/ID, and then that's an instance, and you can see nothing other than connect wallet. Yep. Because and if you sent the link out to anybody, like they have connect wallet, and if you connect your wallet and you're not on the list, you see you're not on the list. If you connect your wallet and you are on the list, you see the unfolding of the beauty of the Prompty within. The other option here is there are things that are like a list of ended, like publicly viewable prompties, right? So
Okay.
like, you know, there is
Yeah,
an outward
yeah,
thing,
yeah.
and if you've connected the wallet, but you can't do anything in it unless you connect your wallet and you're on the list. So yeah, did that make sense?
Up until the very last part. I think that
Sure.
connecting wallet and you're not on the list, seeing nothing feels like a lost opportunity to show them something. But
It changes the nature of what you're using it for, potentially. Or
Yeah,
what you
I feel that tension too. It's about being honest versus not wasting their time. Like if we're honest, we're kind of
Yeah.
wasting their time a little bit. Like
I mean, could you move them to it's a form of a marketing page,
Yeah.
page, but like what is this? So that because if they get
Like you
denied,
can't see this, but you can create your own Prompty. I don't know.
yeah, that's
so
what
this is
we could do that in a kind way too. It's like, hey, you may have got a wrong URL, but while you're here, fire up a prompt.
Yeah,
you know, it's like,
exactly.
hey,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah. We
this
can-
link is either ineffective for some reason. Not to be like, yo, they don't want you to see this. We could probably just be like, sorry, this, you know, there's some technical reason you can't see this in a kind way.
Nice.
Fire up your own
Nice.
though. Yeah.
Yeah, so a step up back from this is how we're handling privacy. So that's the decision here, and then from that place we can all of this stuff. I think the what we're describing to the user is possible. We'll sort of trail from that. So yeah, because we now have like effectively a privacy toggle in the settings, like for the content of the Prompty instance.
Yeah. So one big privacy decision that we could decide on is like just a big fell swoop saying like all prompts and the number of responses they've received is a public thing.
Good. Yeah.
And so like every user knows that every time they make a prompt, the prompt itself is public and the number of responders is public too.
Yeah,
And then
that's good.
The content
That's elegant.
within can be
That's nice.
gated in different ways.
Cool. Yep.
interesting. There's room here too, because with the wallets, it's not one of the things that's frustrating about Web3 is the wallets are not a communication tool. Like you can't really send messages to people. You don't know that they're getting them, but you could
They're real.
choose. Yeah, you could choose with Prompty to have, because if you can see the prompts, and let's say you're like, I want to join this group. I've got a lot to give, like the prompts align with who I am. There's a way to reach out to someone. Like you could choose to have like a way of, I don't know, connecting or leaving a message for the organize, like this is down the
100%.
road, but there's a way,
Yeah.
if you can see
Yeah,
things,
a request for
then
admission thing.
potentially
Mm.
invitational, if there's an alignment and content of what you're seeing.
Yeah, so this is back to the public case when these things have a surface that are maybe they're moving around. But I like this as like a minimally, this is what our group is thinking about.
Yeah.
Like, and you scan that and you can kind of get an idea of the kinds of things that are being explored, the tone that's being explored, the frequency, all of this kind of thing. It is it's like looking through a shop window or something. I really like this kind of thing.
Yeah, and just like seeing the prompts is the fastest way to train people how to do it, man. Just show them the last like 10 public ones,
Yeah.
and like or like even if you sorted them by highest response numbers, suddenly it's like the best training you could ever, for like ramp in you could ever see, right? That's good.
Yeah.
I like this. That's good.
So it kind
Okay.
of sounds like this would be this one more so. Like it's not not exactly, but anybody can see some things. Connecting a wallet means seeing more if you're on the list, and the ability to respond if you're on the list.
Yeah, so this is where we get that case where, okay, so most cases how we're handling these things where it's not publicly accessible and people aren't putting them on Twitter and stuff, where I mean, that's possible. People might do this, but in the short term where we're doing like hands-on, like, you know, curated experiments with community managers or people like that, they are handing out this link to people who have access, most likely, right? Like the number of people who are going to land on this thing and connect their wallet and like, yeah, that case is lower, I guess. I mean, this is what I'm thinking. Or proposing, which means that like if you have the URL, you're probably on the list, which means that when you connect the wallet, you get the ability to respond and, you know, all this stuff, right?
Yep, I think so.
Let's do it.
There's slop in there, but we'll solve for slop later. Okay, so let's clarify this page and make sure.
So yeah, I think maybe we just back up a step here and basically say, like almost like a new user story.
Yeah,
it's like in my
I'm in.
Twitter. Like, so that's like the link that I click to get somewhere. And I'm being sent this from somebody who has like some context about what I have access to.
Yeah, I think here a good thing to put is so-and-so responded, so-and-so responded, some social, that might be nice at some point in here.
Well, I guess,
rather than just
to
like
be clear, this
X
is
number
a
of responses.
Yeah, specific prompt response. So we would see that prompt, which should be any
Prompt text response. It's that screen up above this one.
This one.
Yeah.
Yep. And then maybe some additional information about
It's an option. Number, it's just expanding out the sort of number social.
Social proof or whatever.
Yep.
Makes sense. Do we want to do the connect wallet flow? I mean, kind of already have that functioning, so I don't know if we need to remap that. The whole like responding flow.
Right. No, I agree. And did you guys say, but you can see you can see the prompt, but yeah, okay, the field is grayed out until you connect wallet. Sorry, yeah, you already had it.
Yeah. So this one is yeah, we're just assuming that they're probably on the list for now. We don't need to do the sort of
No.
you're a stranger wandering through screen.
I'll note it down,
Like
but
it's
yeah,
too
we would
much.
not.
It's too much to manage right now.
Right now they get a 404.
Yes.
Yeah, I think if they connect their wallet and we just put something on the screen that's like, you're not on the list. I mean, this is the friction point where like, do you want to send a request to be added to the thing? But let's see if
We're not worried about it yet. Yeah,
No.
I'm with you.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, we're in the process that we have now, like, which is
Seems to be
so functionally it
self-explanatory.
works. We've got this thing working. So it's more the question of priming them to success.
Do you think that involves like adding more context on this page here about
Potentially, I think
what's going on? And
yeah, let's pull up again and like test our assumptions here. Like we're okay. So we've decided that like Prompty instances are like unlisted or public, doesn't matter. Like the only distinction there is whether or not it's on the main Prompty list, I guess. I mean, this is what we're saying. So it's visibility by like listing rather than access. And we are saying that access wise, all written prompts and number of responses and potentially respondees, but that's a gray area in there, are available, which means that any Prompty instance that has prompts in it has an outward facing page. And like, it's got a persona that is publicly available on the internet, but effectively unlisted unless you have the URL. Okay. Now we have the actual mechanics of designing a system where so this is probably another design exercise. Like as long as we know what we're working with here and that stuff is not changing, then we can design how to best present it to everybody, because my brain is starting to hurt when we move into that area. So I think we split that up. So yeah, I guess we're going through the flow to test all of our assumptions and then land on something that can be built. So, and then assuming that sets us up to best experiment. Okay, got it. If that sounds right to everybody.
Yeah,
I think so.
Definitely.
Okay, so I think now we just sort of poke around to see if there are any other of these like sort of surface cases that we need to solve for, so that when we plan the build, like we run into any of the design frictions. So the connect wallet thing, the responses. So this is the case where the decision that we've made that at the end of on completed prompties, like expired ones, everybody can see who is everybody in that case. Is everybody the Prompty instance, or is everybody the world? That decision we just need to.
Also, dude, and also there's something weird how like I want to ask who gets to make that decision. The obvious answer is the person who made the Prompty, but I also want a world where it's like you leave the door open for someone to promote yours, kind of thing, or something. I don't know. That sounds like V2 stuff, but
yeah, there's a bunch of games in here on how and what goes out the door. So like the assumption that we have an outward facing like tonality for a group, right, based on the prompts. Then the next step is you could also have the answers, and then you get a really good look inside the group. But I think that keeping the answers private for now, like, or undisclosed, it's a decision. I don't know. And like, this is more toggles, but like, I think we run ourselves into wanting to toggle it, or people ask for it, or I don't know.
Yeah,
But like,
there's something I found really interesting about the Honeycombs publishing loop that we were talking about, where it was like this consensus driven, like maybe N of X promotions, where it's like if X percentage of the prompt responders promote it to public, then it goes out. But like it's kind of like as Jordan said, like it gives ability for somebody to be like, oh, I think this should be out there, and like push that, instead of sort of globally making a rule for it one way or another. But again, yeah, like this is getting into like the what gets published game, which could be a little bit of a rabbit hole.
So we are tiptoeing towards a decision that sounds like a co-writing, co-publishing tool here, which I have a bias in this direction because we've been playing with it a lot. But and then the toggle becomes like, like the UI may pull it in a direction that if you were trying to surface public stuff, right? So I think that should come from a private environment anyway. Like that's our thesis.
To have things worth publishing, you must have that environment, but you must also have like a path for those things to get out.
Yeah.
And also just going back to like recentering onto the community manager. I'm also thinking, I'm excited to explore those rules later, but I'm also thinking that some of this stuff is probably already captured in the culture that's arriving at the tool. Like they're going to bring some of their privacy, like social settings into this. So I think you guys landed perfect. I love where you landed on that.
I think that, so to I think the default, if it makes sense to have a default here, prompts are public, responses are private. Unless wallet connected, or whatever gate that is.
I think with this one too, it's like something that can add complexity. And if we just keep this default, it'll probably be good, but it's something we can always add on later. Like more things to it if we want to have like more settings and whatever else for community managers. Like hopefully they will tell us and give us the insight of what we need.
That's insane. This seems like a perfect way to get it out there and then literally wait until we hear back and do exactly what you're saying. I love it.
Yeah, I think it is probably pulling the highest likelihood of people responding if they're not afraid the thing is going out. And then we also have to figure out how to communicate all this stuff. But and what assumptions are being made that people don't understand. So okay. Prompts are public, responses are private.
I think that's a good line in the sand to start with. Yeah, just like simplifies things.
Really easy for users to feel comfortable in that space too. Like, I love it.
Yeah, that meme spreads easily enough. We're like, okay, my responses are private, and then we have to define private. But
private asterisk.
Yeah.
Well, we'll frame this as we go.
That one's complicated.
Yeah, because technically, and then privacy as defined by you could see it if you have the technical know-how to go find it. This kind of thing.
And that comes back to
rough.
Well,
it's framing.
It's framing. Exactly. Framing.
We are not making a promise of privacy. I think what we're going to do is language this thing in such a way that it is clear what's happening. So this is part of designing the experiment and explaining it. So what as far as we're concerned, like the felt sense of the thing is like there are soft gates here, right? Like friction's enough for most end users. In the case that like if I land on a page, I can't see stuff, and then if I press a button, I might be able to see stuff if I'm allowed. But like for like more engineering minded folks or people who are better, it is still available if so it's semi-private in that sense. Like it's something that could be made public. That's how you respond. Honest. And if it's really juicy enough, then it can be made public. Like it is public ready. But we need to figure out how to describe all that.
Yeah, man. And like this feels like almost like lore stuff where it's like, you know, you're throwing this idea into this land. Do you want to give people a map or something like that? Like there's a way to frame that where it gives them the idea that it is stumble uponable perhaps, but you get to almost like decide how easy that is to find or something. There's something here, man. I love it.
Yeah, it's obscured, but like if somebody is driven enough, they could find it. So like just know that. Like
but and some level it's true for everything online already, so whatever. Welcome to
depending on how important that privacy is, we could figure out how to make it private. You know, it just depends on whether or not that's a deal breaker or not for the users.
I think finding that out before having to build it would be good. So like we go test it,
right? Because
my guess is true privacy, quote unquote, like effective privacy is a value add that this is true when Carbon made the thing that we built. Like it was our number one paid feature.
Oh,
and
it's the
basically, and all it did was password protect your portfolio. That's it. And like okay, and people were just like,
worth every
for whatever
penny.
reason, and then like you know, so my guess is that there is something here too. Like people want some assurance of privacy, and assurance of privacy is a technical hurdle, which means that it's a friction that we can charge for.
Cool.
Well said.
Okay, so for now, what we're calling private is just, you know, wallet gated or whatever. As long as that logic makes sense and it's easy enough to implement without having to build anything specifically for it. Okay, where else? Responses. Once you're in the system, we assume that everything works like it does now. Like there are clarifications and stuff, but like what you can view and what you can't. There's the case that you have like your wallet connected to the top level domain. I mean, that's how we're doing this, or by instance, like So is there, we're all the way back up here, a list of prompties that you are a member of, you know, just kind of this screen changes once you're initiated.
Good. Yeah, like in addition to the public ones or something, like the ones that you are a part of. You know, kind of
and the public stuff, all this, like if we make the determination that the, I mean,
True. Yeah, I guess I'm just saying like it would make sense, like basically on my profile, because if you could be a part of multiple, so you might need to know what those are, because you might not even know.
So this is a problem for later, probably, but like it will, this screen will show up at some point, probably. So we are going to have this problem before other people, likely. We're super users. But minimally, you have a page of notes, and then with all the URLs of the things that you're. So I don't think we worry about this one too much. What else? Yeah, we're basically just we're figuring out the like external boundary on this thing. That's primarily what we're doing in this session, it feels like. Like people coming in and keys. We're just you have keys or you don't have keys, and if you don't have keys, what do you see? If you do have keys, what can you get to, and then how? So are there any other surfaces that, like end user surfaces? Clearly there are, like, you know, sort of engineering surfaces, contract surfaces that I mean, we could go into that if we want to. I don't know.
Is there variations like when you show up on a Prompty and it's already closed? You got a link to a Prompty that's already closed. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but can you track those kind of things? Like,
That's the metadata social card thing potentially
Mhm.
after it's closed.
oh, okay, yeah.
And when it's still open. Because I think part of the spread of
Okay,
this is having the experience. This goes back to what Tony was saying. If we're optimizing the spread of an open prompt and responding, the social card and I guess
Yeah.
Discord and Twitter is probably the social networks that we're most likely to be in. I doubt people, I mean, I don't know how this would work in email. I'm gonna guess that's not a priority. And then
we have the
text
Notion
message
case for ourselves.
and Notion.
Notion has nice embeds, so it'll unfurl
Cool.
those.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm gonna just make a note where you're at here, John. So we've got Notion, Twitter, Discord, text message. I think are our main. Just to get that out of my head.
Yeah, kind of like imagining, just the roughest of shapes here, but it's some dynamic thing like for responses or something.
And
this would,
Is it called a social card? Is there a name for this thing?
I think it might be social card, social.
I'm just gonna
and
look it up.
functionality wise, it's read only, right? It's just a link. It's not. We don't.
Yeah, it's just a link that's styled effectively, right?
Do we show like
Yep.
how many responses are already on there? Do we have any that dynamic
That's what
info?
I'm-
Someone
That's
mentioned
what I'm
that?
starting to think about, like what gets shown there. I mean, there could be a thing. I don't know if this is way too fancy, like it's open or closed. Like there's something in there, like respond now,
State.
kind of thing. If it's open,
Yeah.
that would be kind of cool.
I mean,
Again,
this
if we're
is just
designing for
time remaining. Like
invitational.
so the cards that we have these cards here, like in the listing, we're just adding a
external
top level structural view that's like, where does it live, right? So what account, like what instance, and then if there's like a logo or something like this, avatar kind of thing. So, and then everything else that's in the cards that we have on the site now.
Oh, so probably author as well.
Oh. We wouldn't show group in the card though, because that's under the covers.
You mean like
I mean,
That's a
think
name,
we could-
right?
yeah. So I think this is we can mock it up, and I mean we have that access.
We don't have to sell it
and
now,
it's
right?
it's publicly available. So like
Yeah.
prompts and who made the prompts, and who owns the prompts are all available, right? So it could be like this is a prompt from Buzzard Squad. Like we have the Prompty as a domain, like which John put in there. We have the squad that created it, and then we have the details about the prompt. So we can figure out how much of that structure we can like jam in there.
Yeah, there'll be limits just based on text here, I imagine.
Is another surface, or is this a totally different primitive? The like embed in blog post website. I'm just thinking about the primitive that we were looking at the other day. That's the reference tool for the whatever that was.
So to my mind, that is a bit different. Like it's in this area, but if we're looking for interactivity there, then it would be like an iframe, and that thing would have its own connect wallet modal or something like, or if it's just like a rendering thing that takes you to the Prompty page, then all it's doing is redirecting you, but it might still have like, in other words, it won't be an image. It'll actually be HTML content, and then we'll need to render that in some way.
Yeah, we'll see about running into this one.
Yep, just noting it because it's in my brain because it's related. That one might come up. We might run into this because I think there's a sense of, we haven't really talked about this, but wanting to publish so that we can start sharing some of our own thinking, not in Prompty, but blog posts. So, and that's part of the larger effort of finding aligned people who, yeah, want to know what we're up to, kind of thing.
Yep.
Because if we can incorporate Prompties into that kind of writing, and it, like we feel the draw to do that, that's cool. Like that.
So this is public features,
Okay.
broadcast. Like this all falls under broadcast featuring, because in that
Interesting.
case,
Yeah.
the wallets that have the ability to respond are all, or some subsets that we can determine from somewhere. But for now, broadcast is limited to people with wallet access, which means that effectively they're closed off from most things.
Yep.
The social cards and stuff are still useful because trafficking these things around in Discord and everywhere else, we get paid back later on too, but it's just broader appeal is just, or broader usage won't show up until we decide to open public.
Yep.
When we move to public beta.
It could make some kind of mystique, you know, or people just see them in glancing and passing, but you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's good. We should have the plan that they can get out. But I mean, because there's the case you could hack this thing and like, you know, get ETH addresses from, you know, Twitter, and then you manually put them all in, and then the people who are following you that have their, you know, there's an overhead here, but that friction, solving that friction, another value add. So if that friction is like a lot of people are doing it, and then we fix it, that'll be $1 a month, please.
Yeah, great.
A prompt to collect DNS addresses to be added to the Prompty. But we just need to shortcut that loop somehow.
Yep. That's a snap in.
Okay. I mean, I guess while we're in this space of like what is online, what is sort of publicly visible, not publicly visible, does it make sense to try and like figure out the relationship between the domain structure? I mean, to me, that just feels like that might inform how the actual creation process will work, like the contract side of it. But that's going to be getting into technical, so I don't know if there's more things to cover here before we do.
Yeah, I think we just put a pin in any other surfaces. I mean, we'll run into stuff, but if anything, like, I mean, what other ways can they get there? Like, people get a link and then they come in, and like we're like, most people who are sending a link will be sending it to people who know how to get in, and for those who don't, then we've got Mystique. So
I mean,
yeah,
we're also lucky that like this does require a certain human element. You have to know someone for it to be fun. So it's like, there's going to be someone to talk to. Like, there's a layer already happening that we don't, you know.
Yeah, so then it's all social tooling and guidelines and priming, which we get into the social design jam, I think, next. So we're in technical lane, to make sure that all that's buttoned up and we're not missing anything. Basically setting ourselves up to build out the prototype. So with the domain stuff, what were you, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of comes back to our discussion here about whether this group name is unique and whether we're sort of registering those up front and then like disallowing domain names to be set. Basically, like if we go down that route, like it does open up at least a little bit of complexity. It's kind of like the classic Vercel, like assign your domain, and there's like a process that there's like some back and forth there where it's not just the first value you put in because it might already be taken. And the whole alternative, maybe the simpler path, is sort of the way where CJ mentioned is just like an ID, where it's prompty.xyz / effectively group ID / then probably prompt ID. And that keeps us clear of any collisions. And given that, I guess, like, we're not necessarily expecting people to be publishing things right off the bat here and like going for that loop, then I think that's reasonable. So
Yeah, I think that the naming stuff falls under public broadcast down
Yeah.
in the box. So
more like
because for
a
now,
value add where it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
exactly
you can
that.
present as X and theming and all that.
there are these natural seams of like, if it's going to be in public, you want it to look a little bit nicer, but for people who don't care, they don't care. So yeah, I think IDs are fine for now. We get it functional, like, and then we can role play this thing and then see if anybody cares at all. I imagine they will, but the point that they're probably caring is that it's more useful.
Mhm.
So like, they're like, oh, it would be really nice. We're using this thing a lot. If we could brand it, in such a way, or we're using this publicly or something. So let's see if that happens at all. May never.
In that case, I guess I'm now trying to imagine the shape of the contract that's kind of like the one, maybe the layer above our current Prompty contract, or if there is one. And I think, like CJ, I'm basically wading into unknown territory here, but kind of trying to understand whether we rewrite the current Prompty contract to some extent, or just redeploy instances of it, or change the architecture entirely.
Sorry, can you go back up
Sure.
to the start? I was doing some encryption research because I got totally distracted by that when we started talking about it.
No worries. Yeah, so kind of just trying to shape out like how much, if and how much the current Prompty contract structure changes if we're going to be kind of doing these like spin up your own instance version, like whether that's going to be redeploying a new instance of our current Prompty contract, or we're just changing the prompt contract in the way that everybody's sitting on one, and we're just kind of doing that like group ID.
Yeah, I
image.
think this. Yeah, I mean that. Yeah, I think we discussed it mostly last time. I think no matter what, we're gonna have to redeploy things. I think like for the most part, like it's all implementation detail, and I think for the most part, it won't have that much impact. I think we just decided to have a top level contract, which will basically have the group IDs names, and then that'll point out where it needs to from there.
That makes sense. And I guess, are you still, like, what I'm just trying to map is just where if you're still seeing a distinction between like the main overarching contract and all that's going to be keeping is like the list of IDs and the names, and then all the logic that's currently in the Prompty level contract is still going to stay there, and that's what's going to handle the actual responses and the prompts.
It can go either way. It's basically like whether you want to merge it into one contract or have multiple.
Gotcha.
I think it's like kind of implementation detail, and I actually like ultimately like it doesn't. I don't think it has like that much effect on the overall system. I think like without looking at the code myself, it's hard for me to say like what the right approach is. I think it'll become natural by looking at the code in terms of what to do. But I would kind of have to like spin up the whole thing in my head to really answer. But I think like ultimately, like there's so many ways that this can be implemented. Like there's like at least 10 that I can think of, and it's like all of them will work. And since like this isn't going to be like a hardened system for a long time, I think basically, and like especially with it being like tied to RLog close enough that like anything goes. I think whatever's easy and makes for the easiest system is what we should choose.
That sounds ideal.
But I don't have any specific like idea. My guess is like maybe it all as one contract is the easiest.
Mhm.
I don't know yet, but like I think that's how the current system is written, is it's all one contract. And I would suspect that that's the same thing happening here. It's probably all one contract. Maybe it's two, but ultimately like I think the graph is doing the heavy lifting no matter what for us. So as long as we're emitting events, nothing else really matters. Like because the contracts don't need to store any information. They really have to submit events. So it's just saying add an event emitter, and that can be structured in 10 different ways.
Gotcha. Okay. Sounds like a whole host of options to choose from there. We just kind of leave it to when we're in the code.
I would say like whenever we want to work on that problem specifically in code, like we can do it live and like literally just make those choices and just go for it.
I'm good with that.
But it's sounding like we're forking in a little bit. We've got, so I guess the big question is, are the decisions here like clarified enough to get into a build? Like, is there anything that we need to answer from like the sort of user side or anything like that that wouldn't, you know? Yeah.
I think the only thing that I can think about is like basically reframing this document into more like technical. Is just like looking at it from the more like technical perspective and like collapsing it into basically tables. Because like once you collapse it into tables and be like, the contract needs to emit an event for this thing, an event for that thing, and an event for that thing, you get your specification, and then the contract basically writes itself.
Yeah.
Cool. Do we want to try that now, or do we want to set up a separate?
I think we can do it now.
Yeah,
I think there's,
I mean,
like,
because it's just a couple points, right?
there's what, 3 touch points. One is create a Prompty instance, emit an event where it has group name, visibility, and addresses. You can also add addresses later. Probably like those are the 2 touch points for this one.
Yeah. I also sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tony.
We should probably have like a technical design meeting around the responses, the prompts and the responses themselves, to like just kind of think through, like, you know, way into the future of like potential features that might get added, and see if we can figure out a very abstract way to generate the prompts and responses that will support that going into the future.
What I'll say about this is I have like a super overly abstract thing right now that probably suits it, which is more like the RLog type thing, because like it would be extensible for adding things later on. Like basically, like we could add whatever features we want because it's effectively like totally arbitrary. And I think if we take like similar methodology here, it can also be used. I like almost thinking about it as in like the instance, the prompt, and the responses are kind of all independent from each other, and then you're using a relationship to tie them together. Means that you can continue to build more relationships later, instead of having them be deeply intertwined. And I think that's diverging slightly from the model we have now. But yeah, I think I agree. I think it's probably worth going over in a little bit more like technical detail. But like I think it'll probably be like a good like 30 or 45 minutes before we get into code, is just like reviewing the code base, what we have now, and then kind of seeing, okay, these are generally what we're trying to accomplish this next step. And then, yeah, like what could be future features or things that need to be added? And are there like technical paths to add those things, given the model that we have? Because like I think we can see like a little further out in terms of like the settings page and all of that, and thinking about like, okay, what does that structure look like added to what we already have as well? And for responses and things like that, if there's like deeper responses, which is like a metadata response or like blah blah blah, you know.
Yeah. And I wrote up a little blurb on the side on like one really simple way to make the things truly private. I think it's not a lot of work, but I think just kind of keep that in mind for like, see if that's also something we need to think about for how we format these things to at least support some sort of encryption in the future.
I think like I might need you to walk through this. Like I don't totally understand how this works. If you understand how it works, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I basically, whenever say I create a prompt and I add all of you all as people that can respond to it, so I get your addresses, and so in the field where I would mark you as people that can contribute to it, I'd get your public key and I would encrypt the private key for there's one private key for the whole prompt. I would encrypt that for each one of you. And now when you come to the prompt, and if there are responses, or when you create a response, you can extract the private key with your private key, and then you encrypt your response. And that's going to be encrypted with a single private key. And now anyone else that comes and views the prompt can get the private key because they're whitelisted. And
So
then
is the
view the responses.
is the private key encrypted multiple times?
Yes,
For each public key?
key.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's encrypted multiple times for each public key, and that would probably happen in the same place where you add the users that have access to
At the
Yes.
Prompty instance.
at the
Yeah.
Prompty instance. And it also supports adding new people too. So like if you created it and
It just adds a new encrypted private key.
it would, yeah, exactly.
I guess where is that private key initially like stored?
It's
or generated?
it's generated by the prompt creator. So the prompt creator, when creating the prompt, will generate a private key and then add it to the Prompty itself. And then that would get stored on chain.
Where okay, but where's the like unencrypted private key stored? Is that stored on like a user's
It's-
machine in a cache, or
No, it wouldn't. It's not stored anywhere else other than with the Prompty itself, because essentially, like say for me, as I create it, the app will generate a private key for them, and then I will encrypt it with my public key, and I can store it, at the root of the Prompty, and that means I can always come back and have access to.
I see. So I got it. So basically you're saying like, when you add someone else, you use your public key to decrypt the private key and then re-encrypt it with someone else's public key and to add them to it as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. I was trying to figure out how that works. This makes sense. I think like it might be worth adding this, because the only thing is like I don't know what we do with the graph, or like we just have all the messages be encrypted and then like you have to like query the server or something, or like store the private key in like your local storage or something. Like I think on the front end interface it starts to get like more difficult, or we do a bunch of RPC queries, which also gets maybe not the best.
Why would we have to do a bunch? I don't think this would require, like, basically it's just access to the information itself. So like all the data should be handled the same way. It's more so just like we wouldn't
Well, I
be
guess
able to.
when the information gets to the graph, like now you have to decrypt all of the information coming out of the graph, right?
To I see
view
what you're
it.
saying. To view it, yeah. But if you have access to it, you can do that all on your end. You don't have to do anything like.
Client side, you mean?
Yeah, you would do it all client side. Like nothing. Like basically, this would mean that the graph never has access to your information. From a.
Do you know
just
if?
Good.
I was just gonna say, do you know if like MetaMask and these things like through Ethers have these utilities that like allow for this to happen? I did research like a year ago, and I think MetaMask desktop supported things like this, but I didn't think any other clients did.
I mean, I don't understand why you would need MetaMask to handle this, because essentially you'd get like, as using a client, you would download essentially all the encrypted information.
Right.
And if you have access to it and you have your connected, you would essentially sign with your wallet to decrypt it is I think how it would work.
Right, but I think you need to make a call into the wallet in order to decrypt it. Like there has to be a function call, like here's the ciphertext and
Yes.
here's the private key to decrypt this information. So you have to make an RPC call to first get the private key which encrypted the group information from the contract, right? You have to be able to decrypt that, make sure that the wallet can decrypt that, and then you have to use that private key to decrypt the rest of the information as well.
That second step could happen just in the UI. You don't need to do that elsewhere because you just need to get that private key.
I see. So you're just so it's just basically treating the private key as plain text at that point, and
yeah,
like running it through like whatever elliptic curve to decrypt the information.
Yeah, exactly.
I see.
Is your instinct to basically do that through the wallet so that the wallet is basically handling that process and the private key never exits the context of the wallet?
Right.
In an ideal world, so that you're not
Yeah.
extracting it and doing it in just some runtime, but no.
I'd be curious to play with this.
We should talk about it later.
I like this though. This is cool.
So
I like trying to feel into the level of abstraction on this thing. It's wild.
I mean, it would be really cool to have like properly encrypted information. I think
Totally.
to me, it would feel like the whole system is a little bit more complete, because without it, it feels very, very shaky. Like I think, and like a lot of the deaf people immediately felt like that too.
Yeah.
And like, I think it's like, to some degree, it's like unimportant for most people, like real users. But from the technical standpoint, if we were able to say that and not have to explain something, I think that would make it.
Yeah, if we get the word private,
better.
and that
There's
word
also-
private doesn't need to be expanded into, but
Yes, but right, yeah, no, absolutely.
that would be amazing.
There's a kind of security felt in the privacy, especially with if you're working on something in a Prompty going to explore a felt sense of experience. If it's private, you feel safe. So you're more likely to dump your thoughts. So depending on what the group is and what you're trying to get across, like a coaching class, for example, or a coaching group, there's a lot of vulnerability. And I think vulnerability and depth of thought is something we value. So this aligns with that. I felt into this immediately after we had invited everybody from deaf in, and I knew that they could see anything we put in Prompty. We talked about this a little bit. So there's a Prompty on what are your reflections or feedback from the deaf session, and immediately I'm censoring myself because I'm considering the fact that someone from deaf could read it. Not that I had anything like jarring to put in there, but
I didn't censor, but I felt anxiety. Yeah.
Yeah.
the two modes. That's a great point. I absolutely agree that it changes the material, like just how it feels being in that space.
Yeah. The content and the experience then of responding. If you know that anyone could see it, I mean, so if we can, that's great.
I think there is a very distinct difference between anybody can see this someday and we all agree when that happens and the way that happens versus I type this and anybody could see it in 1 minute. That's like definitely more terrifying. I'd be so down to just jam on this prototype and make it work. I don't know if this is like adjacent to the next session or something, like where we just get the plain text version working and then just try to layer this in. That sounds really fun.
Yeah, I've got some notes for next steps, kind of at the top of where, based on when CJ started talking, and then encryption falls in here too.
I guess one question I still have is like, how solid are we trying to make the technicals of this thing, or is this still experimentation basically?
Experimentation.
Okay, great.
Yeah, because I think we're just setting ourselves up to shop it around, like see what people do with it. There may be some architectural changes because like our assumptions on some of these things may wildly change, or we need to expand or bang out a wall or something like this. So I think we should assume that.
Cool. Yeah, I think like maybe the like basic goal of the technical stuff is it works and data can be exported from it for future versions.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think as long as that's the case, everything else is fine.
Agreed.
Cool. Yeah, and then just the easiest way to fiddle with the front end so that like we can add like interface surfaces where necessary or this kind of thing. So, you know, without getting overly exuberant about design systems and all these other kinds of things. I think we just sort of build it, we emerge it as we go. Or assume the idea is that we're going to rip it. And this thing is just, it's going to not live forever. So we'll see. I don't know. This brings up like actually the general talk about like getting these things into cycles and then like what the assumptions are, like, you know, are we ditching everything and doing from zero build, or, you know, like on what things, or how to think about any of that stuff. Yeah, it's where I'm not strongest.
I think there's a good question here maybe, which is like, maybe the graph becomes like an important interface, is to have like a relatively defined schema there, or like close to something solid, at least in certain portions. So the backend can iterate and change, but as long as it conforms to the interface of the graph, then it doesn't matter.
Okay,
That's cool.
I don't know if that's a good way of thinking about it, but it's just something that came to mind. And I guess like the subgraph being like stable or even semi-stable, it just means like that's going to be more intertwined with the UI anyway. So it's like anytime we consider refactoring the subgraph, basically it means that we're going to be refactoring at least some of the like web stuff.
okay.
So like that's implied anyway, I guess. And any features that are added are like, I guess it's like kind of coming down to like the database design in some sense.
And then the interface is at the subgraph level, basically. And then if it can work there, then the UI will be fine. So, okay.
Right, right.
Yep.
Because like the contracts could change significantly underneath in order to support features going forwards. But if all the data is there for the subgraph, then like it's all there. So
Cool. I don't know how that actually works, but it feels good.
lots of scripting. Probably. I don't know if it's a good pattern or not. I don't. We'll see. It's just a place to put an interface.
Yeah. Well, it's
Try
nice
to
'cause
stay
at
stable.
least we're decoupling like some things now, and yeah, that's past to a certain point. I think that would be helpful. And we'll see.
I think we're gonna have to try to, at least on the technical side, is like probably try to give ourselves as much information as possible, even if it doesn't seem necessary. Is try to just like anything that goes into the system, hopefully we can read out of it too, more or less, at least in the first iterations.
In your mind, is that more about how we're mapping the stuff in the subgraph? Basically, like what data goes in, make sure that it's all coming back out, basically.
I guess like, I mean, subgraphs can map function calls as well as like events. So I think it's just like kind of like just making sure that we have surfaces covered, and like we're not putting too many things into constants or something that maybe can't be read later on, or like
Gotcha.
I guess like thinking about the encryption stuff is just making sure that like, for example, like we can access all of the like encrypted private keys per address. Like that would be probably important to have in the subgraph, because if we have to migrate that, if we lose those encrypted keys, then that information probably becomes completely opaque, because that private key was generated one time and then encrypted only. So if we can't decrypt that again, that becomes a problem.
Yes, it's like data portability, maybe as a term.
And I guess like there's probably still ways to go about it, like in the contract and things like this. It's just like, how do we make it not painful for ourselves in terms of like having to write like a script to export that data versus like that data exists on the graph and we can move it over cleanly in like effectively like JSON or whatever to whatever we need to next.
Yep.
Or I guess like maybe it doesn't matter at all because like we can just add an additional data sources to the same subgraph and maybe it all just works. Like I have no idea. It's all possible. I don't know enough. I'm just trying to think about like leaving doors open. I don't know if you have any thoughts either.
No, I mean, I think that's pretty spot on. We just need to think about really just have a data session and just think of like, okay, what if this happens in the future? What if that happens? Like, these are some really cool features that potentially we would want to add one day, and just make sure we check all those boxes. It's really not that much, but it's like pretty easy to like kind of box yourself in unknowingly if you don't think about that stuff.
Yeah, and I think with the smart contracts being a little bit like harder and less changeable, you can box yourself in unintentionally and then like kind of really be screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so is there anything else like based on what we've already booted up here that we want to get down to make those conversations easier? That may not even be the right question.
I think we just need to have a data session, honestly. Like just like
I think we've got
try
the framing.
yeah.
Is it worth? I was gonna say, is it worth coming into that session? Like, I don't know. Maybe this is like a little too heavy, but coming into it with like maybe like some like sample architectures or something and see like what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and like go from there. Or I don't know. I'm just trying to think, or just like kind of do it on the fly.
I definitely think more than anything, it's like essentially coming up with like the list of like the schema needs to support all of these things, and then looking at the architecture after that to explore the ways to make that happen.
Okay.
It feels like this would be a great thing to do like in person next week with like a whiteboard or something.
Yeah, I think that makes tons of sense too. I think it'll be a lot easier to hammer out there.
Yeah.
Cool. Which brings up the next thing. We've been sort of cruising along here at, I don't know, like a every other day pace or so. Whether or not we want to keep that up or slow it down or
I'm good with that. I think it'd be interesting to have some momentum before Austin so that we can like really pick up things when we're in person.
Yeah, we've got a little bit more. So we'll be in person it's over 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we got a little bit of time until we can whiteboard. So we might have to do the data thing. What is this called?
Here.
Digitally, what's the word I'm looking for?
Does it make sense to just do it as the next
Remote
session?
Yeah, I think so.
Like more or less, unless there's like more specific design stuff that we want to get into.
No, we tend to do this. We like sometimes we come at it from engineering and then we go to design, but we seem to flip flop. So
that's a good sign.
Which makes sense. Yeah, which makes sense. So any of the design stuff that comes up next will be in the context of a data architecture, and it seems to have worked well in the past.
Yeah,
it seems you understand a space enough that the questions emerge in the other space. And it's like
Yep.
I like you try to formulate this in orgs, you're getting it for free right now. That's awesome, man.
I think
It won't. Go ahead.
this part is going to lead it up perfectly. Like if we do look at our current architecture and look at our current schemas and everything, and then basically open up the conversation of like, okay, like what needs to change and what might change in the future. This all feels pretty together for a session.
When next Sesh?
Good job, Dave.
Tomorrow and Wednesday are both pretty good.
Same. Yeah, where are you going to be, CJ?
I have no idea. Let me go to Google Maps real quick and figure it out.
But the rest of us are opening calendar. CJ opens Google Maps.
Have to find a watering hole with connection.
What's your calendaring interface? Google Maps? Oh, okay.
Well, actually, I'm guessing tomorrow will more or less probably be good because I'm going to be sleeping in Mount Shasta tonight.
Cool.
And it seems like the town probably has cell service, is my guess. There's like a Tesla supercharger right there, so there's got to have cell service.
No, I do.
So I feel like tomorrow would probably be decent for me because after that, I don't know where I'm going. Probably either Klamath or Crater Lake or both.
Cool.
And I have no idea what that's going to be like. So Shasta, I can assume at least. I assume like Crater Lake is probably like pretty populous-ish.
That one might be a little more remote. We drove
Yeah.
by it. I really wanted to go. It looks really pretty. So take pictures. And then
Yeah, it's
Mount
cool.
Shasta, are you near the lake then?
I don't think so. Like more near the
Yeah, you're like, well, no, your camp.
I don't know where the lake
we
is.
are. It's 15 minutes away from where we are right now.
Okay, got it.
Take pictures of that too, because I looked. This was another one we drove by, and we got to see some of it, and it looks kind of like Lake Powell with the sandstone, like reds and beiges, and then the water is so cool looking.
I grew up in that lake, man. I've seen so much crazy shit there. They have sturgeon because they dammed it up. The sturgeon can't gut downstream, and so there are rumors they get to be as long as school buses down by the dam. It's deep.
Seriously?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Damn. Whoa.
Yeah. And it's crazy right now. Like the red banks are. I've spent some time on Lake Powell. I love that you brought up two of my favorite lakes, but it's usually pretty full. But because of drought the last 20 years, it doesn't fill up anymore. But this lake used to fill up all the way, and it's cool when it does. You can go up these little streams that feed it and just like literally swim up tributaries from the lake. It's so sick.
So cool. I've been to Lake Powell once. I think it's closed now because of the water levels.
Too low.
So I got to sneak in, but I lived
Yeah.
on a houseboat for I guess a week, a little over a week. It was amazing.
Yeah, hell yeah.
That's cool.
We used to do a 2 week on a
So cool.
houseboat at Lake Powell for like 4 or 5 years when we were growing up, and it's incredible, dude.
There's nothing. I've never experienced anything like that.
I mean, no one realized it's basically like a slightly smaller Grand Canyon filled with water. Like,
Yeah.
it's an epic place. Like when I hear about them draining it, I honestly get kind of excited. It'd be sick if it's drained. It'd be beautiful. Like it's an amazing canyon. But the lake is cool too, but no water, so I don't know.
That's a very good
That's why.
icon. What would you call that with the sturgeon on top of the school bus?
Infographic.
Infographic.
I really just wanted to see a sturgeon the size of a school bus, and
There you
that
go.
was like as close as Google got.
Yeah, the thing in what was it? I read somewhere about like the way the dam works at Lake Powell, that if it gets below a certain level, the turbines will rip themselves to pieces.
But they need resistance. They need torque resistance.
I'm like, that's quite the system. I mean, it's like F1 tires. They only work when they're hot.
Yeah.
The engineers are like, dude, if it gets bad, they'll stop burning fossil fuels before we have to worry about
Exactly.
We're not worried about that. Yeah.
Zero ways.
Like, basically like send shrapnel everywhere is like that kind of thing that happens. Like it just spins so fast it like flies off the thing and like
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know.
Terrifying.
Probably there's some like
I don't know how it
failure.
works.
It gets too hot or something, and then that'll
That
melt
could be
something, then and then catastrophic destruction.
It's kind of funny. You have like that failure case in nuclear reactors as well. But those get like too hot. I guess with these, maybe a similar thing. But it's like I didn't expect that for hydro dams. It's like for some reason I assumed, oh, it dries up, it's fine. But no, nothing is simple. Nothing is simple.
Yeah, it just slowly winds itself down, right? It's like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
The light bulb just gets darker and darker.
It dims down.
Not like
Not intense enough.
Yeah, I
Full
think
bore
only
engineers.
one boat ramp is open in like Powell of 15 now. Fucking, it's a wild. Ugh,
Yeah.
we were
Yeah.
giving me the heat.
Apocalypse happened super quick, man.
Mm-hmm.
All of their plans, like I researched this a bit because I was curious about it. All of the plans for how quickly the water levels would go down, I guess they hit like a hockey stick curve way sooner than they thought. So there's like all
Oh,
these plans
no.
because they saw it coming, but not this quick. And then everyone was like, "Oh fuck, it's happening now!" And then yeah, I think all the people that work in this area were just like, "What?" Like then all of the plans go out the window, and then I think people go into like emergency sort of, okay, what do we do now?
Are there any places that are like it's better than ever? Like right now, like everyone's just like this is the best
Barton
time.
Springs.
Everything uphill of the water. They're like, this is right.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, I like that question, Tony. And the one I keep hearing about is independent tropical Scotland. Is that the Scottish believe they're going to get independence and they're going to be a tropical island? That's their end game. There's hats you can get. I think it's independent tropical Scotland, and they're trying to have a little more.
That's amazing.
Tropical is
What the fuck?
Just
I think
just
I ever seen
tanned
that.
legs and kilts.
They're just like, yeah.
Sure, why not? What was it? My dad
Siberia
was
is
always
gonna-
like, with the earthquakes and the fault lines or whatever, being in Las Vegas was great because there's the strong possibility that it might be beachfront property if we get a big enough earthquake. California just falls off.
No, that's not the fault line. The fault line is the Sierras
What do you know?
that goes off in the ocean.
Listen, you can
Because
talk to my
I
dad
am-
about this. It's his joke.
Now you know what fault lines we're talking about. Now you got me scared.
I think it's improbable that it's more likely that it's connected to a mountain range than the strip.
Well, I mean, it's the plate, so who knows? I mean, there's
Yeah.
all that. Whenever you see geologic like stuff, it's usually a plate. Something's going down, and there's a ton of that.
Yeah.
East of here, so it could be.
Oh my god.
Yeah, there it is.
Tropical
It's Wales.
whales.
It's Wales. It wasn't Scotland. It's Wales.
Yo,
Thank you,
this-
man. I'm sorry. I got that wrong.
This website is great. I don't totally know what's going on, but it's a fantastic website, and I definitely want to buy their merch.
Well, that's a great domain. The slowest
Yeah, I remember this
website
showing
I've
up on
ever used.
Twitter. Yeah.
Doesn't need to be fast.
Piracy, it's a crime. What is this website? This is amazing.
I'm waiting for cdn.bootcss.com personally.
Oh, these are good. Nuke the UK. I might get that.
I might. I like your shirt, Jordan. Beastmaker.
Thank you.
Good.
It's a good band.
Also, did I
Like
tell you
what-
I really appreciate your Twitter account? I think I did.
Oh, thank you. I hope you don't look
It's-
at my replies and just look at my main.
So far, yeah. But
Okay,
it's
good.
all
Keep that
about,
up.
it's just Jordan's drawings, and it's a lot of
Music
like
recommendations.
skulls and demons. And then occasionally it's something where I'm trying not to draw skulls and demons. Look what I made. And then the next one is like, I'm back to drawing ghoulish shit. It feels so good. I love it so much. Ooh,
Yeah, I'm
tropical
trying to
whales
draw
is
more.
So cute. That's good.
Yeah, I'm trying to draw more, and it's really helping. I like. It's like I'm trying to post a drawing in there one a week. I didn't last week because I did something else that was cool, but I'm gonna get back into it.
I like it.
Keep the engine room warm.
Yeah.
I've been drawing it all. I need to.
Yeah, that's surprising. Dude.
Yeah, Dave, you can draw. You need to get back into it.
I can doodle. That's something. Midjourney ate all that.
Dude, I noticed a change in
draw.
my brain too. That one of the reasons I started drawing is I noticed I changed the way I'd be creative in my brain. So I tried to go back to old school. Like literally, I felt that tension in my brain, Dave. The more I did like Dolly and
it's good.
Midjourney. Yeah.
It's like everybody's getting their Teslas, and then it's all updates and phones or whatever. But like, when the end times come, you're gonna want to have like a 2-stroke.
Yeah, that's right.
You can work on yourself.
Hell yeah.
It runs on sand.
Yeah, you want to. Yeah, when apocalypse comes, you want a '90s Toyota Tacoma.
Exactly.
Yeah.
91 Tacoma.
That's
man.
what you want.
Yeah.
So this is the drawing equivalent of that. You could. We need to be able to make art because the warring tribes will need signia for their war banners, and we can't rely on Midjourney for this. So
I have literally considered just trying a little bit of tattoo work because I can draw okay, just because that way I know I can handle prison. I'll be fine. I'll become tattoo guy.
Yeah,
like that's my skill.
We were
That's my
talking
skill.
about this last night. I went to that high school in Vegas that was a like inner city high school, and like effectively lifted weights and made friends with the cholas, and because they liked me because I was funny, and then their gang leader boyfriends were like, or they would tell them like, "Don't kill him, he's funny," and I'm like, this is my prison strategy.
Yeah, that's right, man.
Dave's stories from this high school, like I don't know that I've heard it all in full, but outdoor Vegas, like so all the hallways are outdoors and lockers outdoors. So getting to and from classes, it's like prison. You're like out in like a schoolyard and there's gangs, like, and you could see the groups. And he saw someone get stabbed in high school. Just people just walking through. He was like, what the fuck? This is insane.
When did you go to the computer school?
Right after that. A math
I was
teacher
gonna
is
say,
like,
you weren't there forever.
you can't be here. You have to leave. And I'm like, okay. I illustrated a photorealistic, anatomically correct pigeon in PaintShop Pro, free license.
Oh,
and then submitted that as my application to the Advanced Technologies Academy.
wow,
That's pretty great.
That's like some Picasso shit.
Yeah.
Vinci.
He just drew birds as like because his father
Oh, interesting.
was like a bird painter, and then he learned how to draw birds very well.
There you go.
And then
That
he's
makes
like
sense.
drawing his dad's bird paintings for like customers by age 9. Something like that. I
This
forget.
shit's easy.
I think it was Picasso.
Sounds about
I
right.
think it was. I watched like a 2-hour documentary after like Pascal told me about Picasso.
If only my dad was a bird painter.
There's a bodega kind of down the street from me in San Francisco. It's the one that stayed open the latest, so I'd only go to it like if everything else was closed. But he always had like his guys ran the shop, and he had his daughter there who would like paint little blocks of wood, little paintings on them, and sell them for like $3 or $5. So I just grab one here and there, just like support her and stuff. I'm like, oh, it's probably going to her school or whatever. And then a few years goes by, and I'm talking to the guy who owns the cafe. And I was like, dude, what happened to that bodega? I spied that girl's paint. It's like, yeah, he sold his building. I'm like, what? He's like, that dude owned that building. He sold it for like 25 million. I'm like, what? And I see like a pimped out Land Cruiser. Like, yeah, there he goes. Land Cruiser goes by, and the guy at the bodega is just ballered out. So the 8 years I was there, he was sandbagging so hard. I had no idea. Like it's just this little, like really like dumpy, like little bodega. And then he's like, cash the shit. I'm like, I want my $35 from wood blocks I gave his daughter. Like, I was so mad. I was so mad about it. The guy's stupid
funny.
rich.
That is a hustle. Did it well.
Long game. Yeah, I heard he'd owned the building for like 18 years and just sat through gentrification and got the big check, right? He went through a few waves, went for the big one.
Yeah.
Well, you were keeping him afloat through daughter art.
Yeah, man. I can't believe I got suckered like that. It's decent art. She did a few like wizards and ghouls, and I just grabbed those basically.
Oh,
when she
sick.
did those.
That's nice.
Yeah.
As long as you've got some wizards and mules.
I mean, it's normally, I'm not gonna lie, normally pretty bad stuff, and I'm partially sure he helped her. Like, whatever. I'm still mad about it. Still, I shouldn't have brought it up.
Yeah, the authenticity is in question, but you know.
Yeah, it really is. Like, I look at them now, I'm just like, dude, this is not hit the same. I kept them. I don't know why.
You got to remember, it's a totem to remember
The lesson.
when you got businessed.
Yeah, this is going to be a family cultural object to pass this lesson down to everyone. Yeah, look upon
This
my
is
wooden
what
blocks.
happens.
Yes.
All right. What are we doing tomorrow?
What time?
Wow. Same time.
Same time, same place.
Same time,
Same place.
different place.
Yeah, different place for some of us.
Would anyone be open to a half hour later?
Fine with me.
Yeah.
The morning's the only time I can really do stuff here.
Oh yeah.
Oh
that's
yeah.
right.
Do you want to do an hour later?
No, honestly, I'm not going to be out there past 9:15. So up to you. But like literally a half hour is probably about all I needed, because around 8:45, I'm like, it's getting spicy, and then I just shower and stuff. So
Well, you're ready for Austin.
yeah.
I'm ready to run the 2 miles as soon as we get there.
Okay. Midday. Like
Midday.
Dude, Austin
Midday.
is brutal.
Midday.
I'll take
I mean,
110 in Reading over Austin in 90.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm excited for this pain.
It's somehow humid and the hottest sunlight at the same time, which I don't understand. The
Yeah,
sunlight
the
is
sun is
it's the
sun
closer.
beams. The beams are unnaturally hot. They hit you, like physically, like they push you. Like, I love that town though. That's one of the best places I've ever been.
I mean, Tony is acclimated. Like the other day, we were
Don't-
he was
How long you been
outside thinking.
You're thinking outside there? Okay, you've been there like a decade at least.
Yeah, I've been here, about 12 years.
Oh my god, dude, that's awesome.
Thinking outside.
Thinking outside.
You gotta earn
Yeah.
that.
Then I saw this guy and he was outside and he was thinking.
Saw a guy outside, pulled out a piece of paper, wrote something down. Didn't even go inside for it.
Yeah, every time I would
out from the effort.
Break a sweat.
I would glance up at Dave, and he was just like, "What am I doing here? What's going on?"
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
this is literally as
Yeah,
bad as
yeah.
it'll ever get there. It's all downhill.
True.
There's always next
I'm
year.
starting to feel like we go on a walk or I'm outside and I'm like, I'm actively able to cognize like small logics.
Yeah.
Just like car,
logics.
cat crossing. I'm like, okay, I'm here.
Sky blue.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Hot philosophy.
On the plus side is like, it's going to crescendo in August, and then after that, every day is going to feel great.
Beautiful.
Glorious.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
it's like winter in Chicago. Like if you can make it to spring, that spring is so delicious.
I hear
It's
about that
just-
spring in Chicago. Yeah, I hear about that.
It's just, and then everybody's outside. It's like 55 degrees, but everybody's wearing like bikinis. 'Cause they're just like pale flesh everywhere. It's beautiful.
Dude, San Francisco, it was like late September, October. It's like the summers are horrible there. They're so cold.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
tourists are gone. And then September, just mid to high 80s,
Yeah,
like
all of a
70s
sudden,
at night,
yeah.
for like 3 weeks. Like all year, I'm like, fucking hate this place. I'm getting out of here. Then like September comes, I'm like, I got another year. I got one more. I got it. It's like that 3 window. So good.
Well, just have 2 more months. Settling in now. All right, cool. Tomorrow.
Sounds
See you all
good.
then.
Wow.
Sweet. This was another good one. We're
See you guys
chugging
around.
through.
Good luck, CJ, on the road, man.
Thanks.
Good luck at the garden. to both of
Yeah,
you.
good luck, man. See you
Please,
around.
please stay safe.
Mhm. Later.
Alrighty. Bye.
Bye.